Hello and welcome. This is the agenda from. Hello and welcome. This is the agenda from. Hello, this is the agenda on Blood Red. I am Dan Austin. This is Joel Rabinowitz. We are from Liverpool.com and we're talking about the hot Liverpool FC topic of the day. And today it's VAR, because if you saw the match last night, you'll be fully aware that Napoli won a penalty to go 1-0 up, that Jose Callejon won in a, I don't even want to call it a challenge. I was going to say tackle. I'll just say an incident with Andy Robertson, where he went down under very minimal pressure. It looked like he threw himself down before Robertson sort of changed his body shape as though he was going to make a challenge. It was looked at by VAR. They left it. It wasn't apparently a clear and obvious error. Napoli go on to win the game. There was the one at Newcastle as well, where Joel Matip is hauled down in the box in front of the cop and
strangled, basically.
Apparently they don't even really take a proper look at it. It just isn't working, is it? Like even for people who are advocates of VAR and of technology generally in football, I don't think anyone can make a coherent case at the minute that this is actually functioning in a positive way that changes the game for the better.
No, and I say this openly as someone who was kind of quite pro VAR before this season started, mainly because I was just fed up of seeing Liverpool just not get penalties at Anfield mainly, but we should have been getting. I think I saw a stat on Twitter the other day that we've had, I think it's 2 penalties in like 2.5, nearly 3 years at Anfield now. We've reached as many Champions League finals as we've had penalties at Anfield, or at the Cop End specifically, which just doesn't make sense given the amount of time we spend in the box with 3 of the best players in the world. And that Matip one, like you said, I think that out of the kind of the main incidents so far this season, that was by far the worst I've seen. He literally had him in a headlock, slammed into the floor. The fact that the referee didn't see it, all the linesmen, is bad enough. But then you've got a room of people watching that on replay and not doing anything about it. And then, yeah, the Callejon one, I have to say, when I first saw it, I did sort of think, it doesn't look great, because he does stick a leg out. But when you see the replay, he sticks a leg out, but then he kind of withdraws it, and Callejon's already kind of launched himself into Robertson's knee. He's the one who draws, well, it's not even a foul, but he draws the contact. And the commentators were saying at the time, surely they'll just overturn that because it's not. And this line, which I just don't get, there's not enough evidence and it's not a clear and obvious error. Well, it is, because it's a dive, and it shouldn't serve to reinforce the referee's initial mistake, and it feels like that's what it's doing now. You've got one error being made by the referee, and it's just being reinforced by another layer of error with the VAR, which is obviously not what it's there for.
It feels at the minute as though, and it's important to note as well that different competitions use it in a different way, which we'll come back to in a little minute, but it feels like for now, referees across all competitions, the ones that are actually in the VAR sort of room, wherever that is, it's away from the ground by and large, don't want to overrule the man that's made the decision unless he's really, really done something quite mad. So that, for example, last night, for me, has to be a clear and obvious error. It's not a penalty. Yeah. So tell him in his ear, that probably wasn't a penalty, that you should reverse the decision, book Callejon, or just not give a foul, whatever, and then go from there. But they're not doing it, and the way we use it in the Premier League seems to be, if they're not looking at that Matip penalty, they're just using it as kind of like a offside checker in the Premier League, basically, at least. Yeah. Whereas if you go back to when we first saw it used properly in the World Cup, it was used regularly, it was used for red cards, it was used for penalties, and it was a very different system in the referee himself was still the one making the decision. He was the one who would go to the side of the pitch, look at the monitor and go, I need to change my mind, or no, I don't. You still have the psychology of the other person in his ear saying, I think you should look at that. But it's still his decision. I'm not saying that either of them is a better system than the one in the Champions League where the referee doesn't get the opportunity to look at the replay, but surely the inconsistency of the ways in which we use it, and they vary massively by competition, shows that we haven't planned this out well as an entire sport. Everyone's just sort of guessing of what the best way is to use it, and that means that there's a load of inconsistency. So you can play a game on Saturday, and then the game that you play the following Wednesday, the VAR is used in a totally different way, and decisions are not actually still being correct. So the only thing that it's adding for me right now is confusion when I'm in a football stadium or I'm watching on TV and I'm going, right, how do they use it in this competition again? Which one's that? And then it's okay, so he's going to talk to someone who's in a shed 500 miles away, and then they haven't got a monitor, and it doesn't actually help us get to anything more like clarity at all.
No, it seems completely random at the moment. And it's interesting you mentioned the World Cup there. I remember specifically paying attention to it at that World Cup, and I thought by and large it worked pretty well. Seemed to get most decisions right, and overturn a lot of mistakes that were made. And it just seems now that, yeah, like you say, it just seems very arbitrary when it's used. There's a few ones that stick out so far this season. I remember watching the Wolves United game when Neves scored that equaliser in the second half, and it's been about 3 minutes kind of putting all these mad geometric lines on the pitch to work out if Jota's shirt was like half a centimetre offside in a build-up, which obviously none of the players had any idea at all, and that was still some way earlier in the move before it led to the goal, which just seems mad. And like, there's another one last night I was watching before the Liverpool game. I just had the Inter Milan Slavia Prague game on, and they stopped it for about 4 minutes dead completely for a random red card check, which none of the players knew, none of the crowd obviously had any idea what was going on. And I think Liverpool was at the Arsenal game around half time. There was a bizarre
Nacho Monreal red card,
but none of the players were appealing for anything.
Exactly, and we were all stood in the cop going, "What on earth is this? Who is he possibly giving a red card to?" So Lee Mason, I think, no, Anthony Taylor it was, is just stood in the penalty area with his hand on his ear for 3 minutes, I think it was, and then goes, "Oh, play on." And it's like, well, if it takes you that long to decide,
it's clearly not a red card.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, you're trying to reach a point of objectivity where you can go, I am certain about this decision. But football is innately subjective. What I think is a great pass, you might just think is an easy ball. Yeah. What I might think is a penalty, you might think is a good tackle, whatever else. So if you're having to take this long to decide upon it, then you're not actually bringing greater objectivity. You're not bringing greater clarity if you're sat there going, well, I'm going to have a look at this possible red card for 4 minutes. And then there's things like, this isn't just a Liverpool issue. We're talking about it now because we are a Liverpool channel and everything, and it's been topical in the last few weeks. But like, Man City should have had a stonewall penalty at Bournemouth, where David Silva just got tripped by a Bournemouth defender, and like, they didn't even look at it. So it's like, well, if you're not going to use it for the things that it's meant to be used for, then we may as well just not have it, really, and wait maybe 1 year, 2 years, 3 years until we've done so much testing that we know exactly how to use it across every competition and we've got consistency with it. Because right now, you're watching a game of football, whether you're in the stadium or in the crowd, watching on TV at home, and you can't even tell really if something's going to be looked at. And you can watch something and go, all right, that's definitely a red card. But because someone so many 100 miles away from the stadium looks at it and goes, actually, have I really got, the proper authority to overrule him here? What does that do for the rest of the game? And all that sort of stuff. They seem very reluctant to actually make calls using it, aside from the ones, as you say, where they can use these mad lines and like graphics to look at whether someone's shin hair is beyond the last defender and whatever else. Because at least, I suppose, for that one, it's science. So someone's foot, if I can prove with a photograph that someone's toe is beyond a line, then the pressure's off me there. I don't have to have been the one that's made that decision. I can show them. Whereas if you're the one sat in the tent or the room or whatever it is at Stockley Park for the Premier League anyway, and you overrule a referee, that's going to get brought up in the future. Someone going, the match day referee is going, I'm not sure you should have overruled me on that. And then that becomes this sort of like referees political thing. We saw Mike Riley talking about it the other week, where he's the head of referees in English football. And he was basically saying, these various errors have been made, and he picked out specific ones. And it's like, well, if the head of the referees is picking out specific errors, then that's a really sort of politicised use of the system, and it's not objective because everyone's thinking about their job and what match they're refereeing the next week and that kind of thing. So essentially, I think my point on the whole thing is that we're in this desperate quest for objectivity and everything being scientifically correct and stuff like that, but football is not an entirely scientific game. Football is not an entirely objective game. So what are we actually trying to use it for? And it feels like every different governing body, every different league, every different team and manager has got a different idea of what they want it to be. And might we just be in for a few years of possibly arguing more than we ever have done before, if that seems possible, about referees and their decisions? The thing that struck me last night, and I think it's kind of becoming a common theme now, is I think referees, knowing that VAR is there, are kind of looking at these things when there's kind of a marginal call or a big call that's kind of late on in a Champions League game, thinking, well,
No, I won't give it, because if there is something and I've missed it, then it'll get picked up by VAR. But of course, it's not, because they don't want to have to overrule the referee. So he's probably seeing that and thinking, nah, I won't make the decision because there's people watching it with replays, and yet they still don't overturn it. It seems crazy to me. And I think, where do we go from here? I don't know whether you just, I mean, obviously it's not going to get scrapped completely. I think it's going to be in the game for the foreseeable future now. The one kind of potential solution, which I think could work quite well, and I've seen other people suggest it as well, is sort of do the sort of tennis challenge type system, where each team gets, say, 2 or 3 challenges per game for a particular incident. So last night, Liverpool obviously would have challenged that, because
Jordan Henderson can go up to the referee and say, I would like to challenge that decision. Yeah. Can you go back and have a look at it?
And if you get it right, you get to keep it. If you don't, then that's it. Fair enough. Which kind of also solves the issue of stopping for random things that nobody noticed, like the red card thing or minute offsides that neither team is aware of. That will kind of reduce it to kind of the clear errors which lead to goals, or kind of big moments like penalties in games.
What would you want then? So if you had that system in place, so say last night Henderson goes to the referee and says, we don't think that was a penalty, can you go and have a look at it? Do you want the match day referee to go and look at a monitor? Yeah. Or do you want that to go back to the people in the truck a few hundred miles away?
I think he should go and review it on the screen like we did at the World Cup thing, because if he sees that angle that they showed on BT Sport, there's not a chance he's giving that. Surely he can't. He just sees that it's a mistake.
Well, I agree with that, because I don't think that any of the decisions should be made by someone who's hundreds of miles away. Because as much as we don't want referees to referee in the context of an individual match, and we would like there to be consistency weekend by weekend, you've got to take into account that things happen in this cauldron of an atmosphere and stuff. And if you're just sat totally neutralised in a very sort of, sanitised room for years, and you're all looking at replays slowed down frame by frame by frame, that to me is refereeing in a context that's outside of the actual game of football. So you're trying to make science where science isn't necessarily happening. So I think I would prefer the system where maybe someone does get to say, we'd like you to go and have a look at that, rather than an objective sort of godlike referee back somewhere else that's watching all the cameras, and then the referee himself goes to the sideline and looks at it. And maybe again you get into a psychological problem where the referee doesn't want to feel like he's being overruled by a player, because if the captain has asked him to go and look at something, he's going to want to have made the right decision. So he's still not going to make it perfect, but maybe that feels like a more accountable way of doing it, rather than at the minute where we've got sort of a variety of referees, because you've got assistant referees and stuff as well that are making calls on this, and the additional ones in Europe too. And everyone's just sort of trying to not make the call themselves and leaving things to whatever happened in the first place, even though that might actually be wrong.
Pretty much.
There we go, we've solved it there. Basically, do it like tennis, I think is what we're saying. But whatever happens with VAR and football, it's going to be contentious for a long time. It's going to be a trial and error system. And the really frustrating thing is that we're all going to have to be really patient with it. Let's just hope that Liverpool start getting a bit more of the rub of the green.
We'll get a big penalty sometime soon from it.
I hope so. I will be doing a show next week after we've got one at Chelsea to win the match on the weekend, where we praise
a handball that none of us saw.
Yeah, we praise the robo ref to high heavens. But for now, thank you very much for watching. Do let us know in the comments what you think of VAR's use so far. If there's a system that you think would maybe be better, do you think that it's used in a superior way in Europe, in the Premier League, in the World Cup like we talked about? Let us know, and make sure to subscribe. We've also got a couple of pieces on our website, liverpool.com, where we've written about it in the aftermath of the Napoli game. So Joel has written one where he's absolutely slated it, to be honest. We've also got one from an American contributor called Ben Krimmel, where he's made a bit of a defence of VAR, but he acknowledges its current foibles. So make sure to check those out. Make sure to check the rest of the writing on liverpool.com as well, because it's really, really good. And for now, thanks for watching. Thanks from Joel. Thanks from me. All the best. Enjoy your day.